Okay, Tom, please kick it off.
Okay. Well, gosh, it's great to see you all here. Thank you for coming. I'm Tom Kraus. I'm the co-founder
Yay!
of Ojai Chautauqua. I have a few very brief comments. A few very brief comments. Is that better? Okay. And then I'll turn it over. So first, I want to thank the Roblar Hotel. They called us up and said, we hear you're having an event, and we have a room. Why don't you use our community room, and we'll volunteer it. We'll donate it. So just a few quick words. As many of you know, the goal of the Ojai Chautauqua is to take on serious, important, controversial issues with the objective of educating ourselves in a way that is productive and fun, welcoming diverse points of view, seeking to understand more than to influence. So our goal isn't to influence your opinion, it's to inform your opinion. Over the years, we've done a whole variety of programs. We were slowed down by COVID quite a bit, but before and a little bit after COVID, beginning our first program was about genetically modified organisms, then fracking, immigration, education, cannabis, water, fire, income inequality, and tourism, among others. This panel is the first in a series about the future of Ojai. Additional panels will take place on this same subject about every other month. Each with a different focus, different moderator, different panel, and a different location in Ojai. Today's offering is meant to set the stage for those future events. In addition, we are planning a separate event on immigration, which will take place on Sunday, September 21st from 3:30 to 5:30. So we'll send out more information for all of you about that. So tonight we're talking about the future of Ojai. So what would you like to see Ojai look like in 5 or 10 or 20 years from now? What is essential to Ojai being Ojai, the place you love and value and want to preserve? What are the things that you think are most important to preserve? Is it the natural beauty? Is it the environment? Is it the village, the community of people? Is it agriculture in the valley with the necessity of a water supply? Is it the people, the social relationships, the sense of community? Is it the governance process? Local governance, that is people you know who are trying their best to solve problems. Is it the educational system, both public and private? Or the artistic community, the cultural richness, the music festival, the tennis tournament, the arts center, the performing arts? All of these things are here now. Will they be here in the future? Will the trajectory be going up or getting better or deteriorating? And maybe most importantly, what will it take to preserve and improve the Ojai Valley community? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Solve all of that tonight. We'll be ready to go have dinner. I want to introduce Kimberly Rivers, who is going to moderate this panel, and she will introduce the rest of the panel. By way of background, Kimberly is an Ojai-based journalist and editor who has lived in the Ojai Valley for almost 15 years. She's currently the managing editor and reporter for the Ojai Valley News. She will be taking the California bar exam next year after earning a law degree. She lives in Miners Oaks with her husband and son. Her son attended Ojai Unified Schools, graduated from Nordhoff. Please welcome Kimberly Rivers, who will introduce the panel.
Thank you, Tom. First, a couple of logistics. So the restrooms are in the back. You've all noticed there were some cards and a pen on your seat. Those will be for questions later. At about 6:30, a volunteer is going to come around to collect those cards from anyone who has questions, and we'll spend about a half hour at the end presenting those questions to the panel. The Roblar will be selling beverages outside for our group until about 8 o'clock. And then they are asking that unless you are going to be having dinner, that you exit by the Ventura Street gate. But if you're having dinner, you're welcome to go front and go enjoy your fabulous dinner. All right, now I get to introduce us all to some of our neighbors. I'm going to start right here with Atticus Ford Reyes. In fall of 2022, at the age of just 25, Atticus was elected to the Ojai Unified School Board, where he has served as board president for the past 2.5 years. Originally, he was from North Hollywood. Atticus moved to Ojai in the summer before his freshman year at Nordhoff. He has called Ojai home ever since. He brings a broad understanding of national, state, and local issues through his experiences, first interning in Congress under the mentorship of Leon Panetta, then serving as a Senate fellow for State Senator Ben Allen. And today, he works as a field representative in our area for our local state assembly member, Steve Bennett. He also locally enjoys trail running, and you'll see him playing basketball around town in his free time. Thank you, Atticus, for being here. Many of you surely know Emily Ayala. Emily is a fifth-generation Ohioan who has been helping run her family's citrus business, Friends Ranches, for her lifetime, and trying to keep Ojai's agricultural community viable, along with her parents, her husband Tony, and her employees. She is a certified pest control advisor, as well as a graduate of the California Agricultural Leadership Program, and sits on several local water boards. In addition to raising 2 teenagers, that's a feat, and many acres of citrus trees, in her free time, she enjoys orchard walks with the ranch dogs, mountain walks, and meals with friends and family. Thank you, Emily. And next, we have Fabiola Sosa. Fabiola is the daughter of immigrant parents from Mexico. She grew up in Ojai, attended our public schools. She is a mother of 2 and a key member of the Ojai Community Farmers Market team that takes place every Thursday at Ojai Unified's downtown campus property. Her deep ties to the community, love of family, and commitment to her children make the future of Ojai something she thinks about nearly every single day. Thank you for being here, Fabiola. Andra Belknap. Andra grew up in Ojai. She graduated from Nordhoff High School, and her early career took her from the 2008 Obama campaign to Washington, D.C., where she worked in the House of Representatives and for the Environmental Protection Agency. Andra was also a campaign advisor and speechwriter to Illinois Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. Andra has published journalism. She is a well-published journalist, published in the Ojai Valley News and USA Today and other publications. And today, she continues to publish long-form reports about government and politics in Ojai Valley on her Substack publication, Local Hero. Local Hero, look it up, Google it, sign up. Andra loves reading, baking, and being outside. Thanks, Andra. And Andy Gilman, Mayor Andy, is the director of the Agora Foundation and the current mayor of Ojai. He grew up in the valley, attending Ojai Public Schools. He's worked at many places across the valley, including Seafresh, Wheeler Hot Springs, The Gables, Theater 150, BST, and has taught for many years and is still teaching high school at Oak Grove School. He loves to garden, hike, cook, play music, read, draw, and enjoy our valley with his wife, Kate. She is also here, of course. He has 3 adult children, and so far, just 1 2-year-old grandchild. And finally, Saw 9 is the co-owner of the Duchess and has just opened Joplin's. The inspiration for the Duchess cuisine is centered around the food that his Indian grandmother taught him to cook as a child in Burma. Saw studied music and was in a metal band and brings his unique spin to his heritage and his interests. Being a recent addition to Ojai in the past few years, Saw and his wife Brittany have made meaningful contributions to life in our valley. Thank you, Saw, for being here tonight. And so I'm going to jump into a question, and panelists, we're going to try to have a brief answer through all of you to kind of get it started and get things flowing. What is the one thing that's really kind of present with you today, either your favorite or most important thing about living in Ojai? And then is that thing threatened or thriving? And Fabiola, I am going to start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I really appreciate the smallness of the community of Ojai itself. It has a lot of potential to be still tight-knit, to be close, to know everybody, say hi to your neighbors, and I really appreciate that about Ojai. Like you mentioned, I have 2 children here, so it takes a village to grow children, and I would appreciate my community to be able to help me raise them into flourishing children. So that's really what I see in Ojai and what's important for me. And I think it has a potential to grow, but I also think it has a potential to kind of diminish. So I think we're at a crossroads right now, and I think it's the perfect time to kind of see where we want to go in a direction of growing financially for people to come and enjoy Ojai, or to grow the people that we have here and see them flourish and be a part of the community and take care of one another.
Great, thank you. Atticus, I'm going to come to you next. So,
Yes, it's the land to me. It's this community to me is Shangri-La. I loved reading Lost Horizon, and it's where Shangri-La comes from. And the 1939 movie filmed Ojai as the backdrop for Shangri-La. I love how the land influences the people rather than the people trying to influence the land, which I think is what we see so much in our society right now. And I love in the field that I work in, which, of course, nothing is ever happening in politics. That's a joke. It's quite crazy. I love that I can come to this town, I can come home, and I can walk down the street, and people will look at me in the eye, and they will say hi, people I've never even met before. Time seems to slow down. And when I want to, I can drive up the canyon to my favorite places in the creek and watch the birds dive through the canyon and watch the dragonflies fly over the water, which is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. So those are things that make Ojai really special to me. And is that under threat? Is that growing? I completely agree with Fabiola's point. We're at a crossroads. And I think there are forces that can help that grow, just as there are forces that can threaten that as well. So that's what I will say. Thank you.
thank you. And to Emily.
I agree with both of my neighbors here. The thing that I find most special about Ojai is the orchards and the mountains and the climate. We need the mountains to collect the water to grow the orchards. The orchards are near and dear to me, and the fruit that we produce here, and the fact that we've been known worldwide for the wonderful citrus we grow for over 150 years says something, but it takes a community to keep it going. Land values are threatening us and have been for decades, and sources of water. And one of the things I love about the orchards is the quiet and the solitude. You don't get that in most of California anymore. Being able to walk in the East End in the evening and listen to the birds and look at the mountains and not have crazy, noisy neighbors and traffic everywhere. It really is Shangri-La.
Andra.
Hi, everyone. I think, obviously, I agree with all y'all. But I will personally fixate on our local democracy because that is what I fixate on. In terms of, I mean, democracy is under threat absolutely nationally, and the reason for me why I choose to focus on local government is because I believe that facts matter, and we need facts in order to engage in government. We need to understand how our government works in a period where there's misinformation everywhere. So our local democracy, there's a lot of great things about it. We have 2 elected officials sitting here on this panel. That's very exciting to me. But of course, democracy, the idea that all people are equal, that all people are entitled to their one vote is certainly in danger. I think that we can see our local public institutions in terms of our public school system is certainly degraded in terms of the amount of funding it receives, in terms of enrollment. We see that most of our elections are not competitive locally. So there are a lot of issues, but I will say Kim and I, most of us go to city council meetings, and there is some aggressive citizen oversight going on, and I really love and appreciate that, and I, want to celebrate that energy.
Great. One quick note, I just want to, the Agora Foundation has scheduled a talk like this focusing on the topic of immigration for September 21st. I just wanted to plant that in everyone's mind because the topics that come up today are going to be scheduled for conversations going forward, and realizing that that is a very present issue on a lot of people's minds. The organization set that date, so I just wanted to mention that. Go ahead, Andy.
No, thanks, Kim. Also, that one will take place at Matilaha Auditorium, so we're expecting a pretty big crowd there. This question's a tough one for me because I think it's sort of all of the above, which we were all sort of saying. It's the land, that it's small, that culturally there are so many things happening here that would not happen in a town of this size normally, and it's because people have been attracted to this place, cultural leaders, spiritual leaders, all that kind of stuff. So it's really fascinating to me that I love the size of Ojai, where I could walk from one end to the other, no problem, the city limits, and not the valley, no problem, but the city limits. And the way it occurs to me is I can't walk outside of my house without meeting somebody I know, a family or a friend. I love that. I hope that never goes away. So it feels like we all understand, sort of generally speaking, what's happening here, and we're invested in it. I would say it's under threat in this way. Many of you know some of these facts, but Ojai Unified being half of the enrollment it was in 2000, that to me is just a clear indicator that we have a population of people that are not here anymore. And I think it's because they can't afford to stay here. And if, even just to clarify, sometimes people say, is it because of the private schools? And it's not. They in some cases, they've grown a little, in some cases stayed exactly flat. So this is a demographic shift in California, we see that. But so for me, it's the housing prices that Emily mentioned. It's a tension always with tourism, honestly. Like, I love the culture part that we get here from tourism, what the city's able to accomplish from tourism dollars. And we pay a price as locals in traffic and in housing prices, but we get a lot out of it too. So we'll get to what we can do about it, but I would say the small character that we have, it's going to take some very careful intervention, participation to keep what we like and move to the next phase.
Mm-hmm. And Saw, something that's really important to you about living in Ojai.
I mean, as you guys know, hi guys. I'm a newbie. I just have a business here, and I moved here 3.5 years ago. But to me, the way I see is about Ojai, it's, quite frankly, like, if I have to say from my heart, it is like, agreed all of you guys, and you have said, and once you get out of your house, you just feel, you just see people around, this beautiful mountains and road and all of that. So, but at the same time, it's just like, I just never had this feeling in this living in the big city. I never grew up in the city. I'm from Burma, I moved here 2007. I'm newbie even in America. So, just to be honest, it's just like, you know, you drive around even you pass through the bus stop, and you get to see that just our dishwashers or prep persons just standing there, and that's just the most beautiful thing. You stop your car, you just pick them up in the car. Let's go together. Let's drive. You know that these are the things that you don't get that in the big city. You just don't have these feelings. I mean, I know this is how I feel. To me, you know, it's a beautiful everything, and at the same time, people to people, and I just like really sometimes that you just in your shorts and you don't have to do it, and that's literally just we moved, and people just call, hey Saul, can you take care of this my yard? Can you take care of this? Can you water that? And sometimes the people just like knock your door because your weeds are getting really high. Can you just like mop it? I know you're not home. Great, thanks. Thank you. You know what? They did it. They did it. I never seen that before. Anywhere. I think, yeah, Linda, you know. Yeah, that's how I feel.
That people-to-people connection.
Right.
And I know, too, Saul, you've talked about, and Emily, in your intro, you had a bit about your employees. I wonder if there might be some similarities, even though it's different businesses, but some similarity in kind of that people-to-people connection around being an employer in the Valley. I don't know if there's something you might want to say about that.
I guess I'll speak.
Okay.
Certainly, it's a small town. You're going to know your employees' children. You're going to support their soccer teams, or you should be if you're an employer. And that's what makes Ojai Ojai. I mean, everybody's connected, from you're running into your teachers or your doctors at the Vons store, or, you know, everybody pulls together. And one of the things that hold our community together, I think, and has over the history of the Ojai Valley, are the natural disasters. A lot of people don't like to think about the Thomas Fire or get PTSD or what have you, but I was just amazed how few people got hurt during the Thomas Fire. I mean, think of the age of the Ojai Valley and people, you know, trying to get out of their house in Upper Ojai. So many people could have fallen down and gotten hurt or worse. And we came together, and we have over and over and over again from all the fires. My dad remembers the fire of 1948 and the fire in 1917 and the floods and the heat waves and the, you know, we pull together and we help each other out, and that's what a small town is. And you do not get that in most places on this planet. It's very unique, and it holds us together. I don't wish for natural disasters, but that is something.
They come whether we want them or not.
Climate change is happening, and but we need to stick together.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about employees, or?
What do you want to say?
You were
Or
saying
even,
that people to people.
I was trying to even capture, Saul, when we spoke before, that people-to-people kind of model that you're bringing to your businesses around employee connections, and then even with other businesses in the Valley. And when they have some onions to sell, you shared a story with me.
Oh, yeah. So, since we're talking about the future, right? Yeah, me as a chef and as a cook. So basically, here, when we moved here in Ojai, we have no idea how this business is going to grow, right? It's 5,200 square foot, and it's just not me though, you know. So I have another business partner with me. I'm fortunate to be here. Very honored, but not just my brain. There's like so many brains that we talked about. How can we get this? We weren't just like, okay, this is what we're gonna do for the community. That wasn't in our first page. What we're trying to do is just like, okay, what can we do to get this sustainable to move forward with the food and the culture, that this is what we love to do in our life. This is my career. This is gonna be, I'm gonna die doing this. So like we all just same thing. Like for instance, you know, some of the farmers is basically like, hey, I have like this 700 pounds of onions. I have no idea what to do with this. Can you do that? Do you think we have planned for it? No way. No, 700 pounds of onions, we don't even have room for it. So if it's not that you can grow it, so we're gonna change our recipes. And this is what we're gonna do. Carrots, everything, anything. You know, after 3.5 years later, it's now the Joblin's, a new restaurants born, like just me and my wife, and this same thing. That's what we're trying to get into this with this the employee that we have. Who needs more work? Who needs more hours? What is going on? And it is easy to like post it. So basically, you know, my day-to-day basis ones like, chef, we need people. We gotta hire. Yeah, it is easy to like put on the Craigslist or anywhere. It's not about that. It's about asking each individual person, are you having enough hours? Are you living? Your living wage? Are you okay? What do you need? So that's, do you get what I mean? And that they have like nowhere to like transfer to like so many places to 45 minutes of a bus drive or anything. It's not like that. It's okay. And the door closed, we can still give them a ride. Do you know what I mean? Like this is how special this town is. I don't know much about, a lot more about like you guys, but like what I know is enough.
Yeah.
I was just
and
going to add,
jump in.
besides business, it seems to me is, and this is what I kind of love about this town, is you sort of know everything and know what, generally speaking, what's going on, and you know all the streets and all that. So you could say there's the people who are taking care of our environment. You could name the nonprofits, the people who are helping people in need. Most of us in this room volunteer usually for many nonprofits or donate to many nonprofits, and we're very connected in the municipality and all the local stuff. And so to me, it's you go out to dinner and you see them at the restaurant, and you probably just came from a board meeting with them, and then maybe you saw a show, but then you're working actually in whatever it is, in the river preserve or whatever the deal is, and so that to me is what is an extension also of that, is this way that we are, because of our size, we don't have tons of bench strength, basically. And so you get to know all the people who are involved, and there's so many opportunities to get people involved. So, Atticus, yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to jump in really quick because, you know, when I heard that story that Saw told us, it really inspired me. Because what I heard was, and I think many people in business understand this, right? It's supply demand, right? You're trying to address supply demand. I think so often what we see in our society, in our system, is the supply demand model, but really centered around profit, right? How much profit can we make? How much profit? How much can we accumulate? How much can we accumulate? How much can we accumulate? And what really moved me when I heard Saw explain their model about, hey, it's not just let's hire more people so we can spread out the cost, but it's addressing that supply demand model, but centered around people. How do we address supply and demand, people-centered, people first, because that's who takes care of us, and that's who we should take care of. And I just wanted to say that, because when I heard that story, it really moved me, and I wasn't aware of that work, because we don't see it so often. And I think Ojai is so often, in its roots, is that. It's so people-centered. And I think what we're feeling, a lot of us around the society, this country, is this shift in culture to, no, it's about accumulation. It's about profit. It's about expanding how much you can own. And I think Ojai, in its roots, pushes back against that, asserts a different pathway that centers around the people and the land. So that's all I wanted to add.
Did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, in terms of employees, trying to keep all of our low and middle income employees afloat in this county is difficult. Housing prices, food prices, gas prices, transportation. And there's been a big shift in the last 6 years in agriculture, and more, most of the Ojai's harvest is done with H2A employees, which are the groups of employees that come up for 6 or 8 months at a time. through the legal pathway, and usually they're in groups of 12 or 24. And for the Pixie season, we hire a group. In October, I sign a contract saying I'm going to give 12 people 4 days of work from February to May, which is kind of a crapshoot if we have a freeze or the rains that we had for 2 years. And so the guys showed up on February 14th, and it's pouring rain. We still need to pay them. So, you know, we reach out to other groups of people that might have employment, and those H2A workers have worked with the crew, they've worked with OVLC, clearing Arundo. So working together as a community to make things work is what it's all about. And it's been a really great great understanding. And now whenever the work crews don't have work, they reach out to landowners and farmers and groups such as myself and say, hey, is there any, do you have 2 days worth of work, or do you have something? And sometimes we don't, but we find things that need, you know, rocks to be moved or brush that needs clearing or whatever, because everybody needs to earn a living. That's what it's about when you're in a small community. So.
Were you going to jump in, or I have?
I was only going to say that related to this subject, and we're talking about employment, it's that this is a little bit older census data, but in the 2020 census, COVID probably changed this in some ways, but the estimate was 2,600 people drive in every day who don't live in the valley but work here, and 2,100 people drive out for work who live here but don't work here. And so just think of all those commutes. And so the way that I think about it and the way we talk about it is, if we could just chip away at the end, we're not going to solve this problem. It's a state problem. It's not just an Ojai problem, but just chip away a little. So if there's some workforce housing that we can look at, yes, we will look at it. You know, if it's employment that we could help that is not simply service industry or tourism focused, but could we help with an incubator for professional services where they're higher paying and things like that? Or, just to be frank, the city has not been easy with businesses over the years by design. So is that something we could also do now, is say, oh, we're eager to help the businesses we would like. So when I think of employment here, so many employees commute in and out, and most of the big businesses do survey their employees, and some, it's half of like the Ojai Valley Inn. That's 425 employees that are commuting in every day, and of those, half would like to live here by their last survey. So that's something that, for me, where I start thinking, how can we help this and have the kids go to OUSD?
And so how can we do that, Mayor?
I'm happy
Well,
to.
no, but
I hear you. I could keep talking, but I want to hear from other people.
And to everybody, what are some? So, I mean, I'm hearing that Ojai is really good at connecting people, solving certain problems, and I think a lot of folks do have a lot of resiliency in Ojai because of that close-knit character. But I'm wondering, I mean, this issue, it almost, and I've felt it kind of continuing to grow and feel pressure, and I'm wondering if we have the capacity to solve the way that you framed it, and there's other facets to that issue. And so I'm wondering, does anyone want to jump in about an approach?
Economic diversification?
Yes, affordable housing, the traffic issue, some of those stresses that are happening. You can just put the mic to your mouth and talk. It is good to go.
Gosh, well, that's
Go.
obviously, am I talking?
Go,
Somebody else
Andra,
talking.
and then Atticus.
I mean, the tourism economy is a huge issue. Obviously, it is the source of our wealth. It is also the source of our income inequality. I was looking at so the way that our local government is funded is through tax dollars, the largest contributor to our city general fund, which is the money that we get to spend on whatever we want. It's like just under 50% comes from tourism. And that is, I was checking numbers, back in 2020, it was more like 30%. We also raised TOT, so we're getting a lot more money from tourism. So I've thought a lot about this. In my in my view, Ojai has always had this, well, modern Ojai, as founded 100 years ago, was founded as a tourist town. I mean, Edward Libby of Libby Park, he also built this hotel, and I mean, the first iteration of it. So it's like this has always been part of our economy, and what I perceive is that that income inequality is, it's just, we have this economic force that is impacting our community, and that if those trends persist, which all indications are it will, we're going to end up with fewer kids in our schools. That's not just a result of tourism, that's also because people are having less kids. Fewer kids in our schools, more income inequality, higher housing prices, more homelessness, and as we continue to over-leverage in that tourism economy, we become more vulnerable to economic shocks, of course, natural disasters. We also know that we're going to have more natural disasters. So, like, it's a real resiliency issue, and it just continues, you know, that economic trend just continues to intensify here. And that is not a result of Ojai, that is a result of the federal government, the state of California, et cetera. So yeah, those are some thoughts.
Atticus, did you want to?
Yes, I was trying to time it when to talk on this issue, but I think now is the absolute paramount time, and I love that our neighbors are talking about the school district and the challenges, because it shows that people are aware of what we've been going through at the school district. So absolutely spot on. Ojai Unified is half as big as it was 20 years ago. Early 2000s, around 4,000 students. Today, just under around 2,000, right? We can draw a lot of reasons as to what that is, but I think one is very, very clear. It's the cost of living, and it's families that just can't afford to live in Ojai. And like Andrew said, people are also having less kids. I would also argue that's because of cost of living. How many folks have millennials at home that are, you know, they cannot find a place to live, so they're living with their parents, right? And they're delaying their family plans. So what I think is really important is we try to understand the landscape around us. To address a problem, you got to identify the problem. You have to understand and call it out. Ojai Unified School District, I believe, really is a canary in the coal mine for what the Ojai Valley is experiencing. And I was, you know, I'll save that part till later, about worries. How do we try to address it? The big word, housing. I'm a believer in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If people do not have their basic needs taken care of, they can't surpass that and work on other things. Your food, your shelter, and your water. People cannot meet those basic needs, they will not continue. How do we try to address a cost of living crisis, a housing crisis that is statewide? Also, declining enrollment is statewide. It's not just happening in Ojai, it's happening up and down the state. How do we try to address that crisis without unintentionally going out of balance? And now here come the 8-story housing buildings that I don't want, and I know the vast majority of people don't want. So how can we be surgical and targeted at that crisis? I think it's affordable housing, and it's workforce housing. We know our employees. I'm so glad people are talking about employees. Ojai Unified School District switches back and forth between the biggest employer in the valley and the second biggest. We switch between the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa. We have a lot of employees who are teachers, and they're older, and they were able to buy houses in the 70s and the 80s, and they are cherished members of our community. We are undergoing a massive demographic shift in the state. In Sacramento, they call it the silver tsunami, right? Baby boomers are retiring. So how are we going to attract the next generation of workers who not only we need their labor, but they will educate our children if they cannot afford to live in the community that they are trying to serve? Can we do something creative and surgical and strategic to build housing for those workers who clearly their labor is good enough for us? We don't deny their labor, but they don't get to live in the community that they serve and with the families and the neighbors that they spend every day educating. And I'll save that because I think we'll talk about it, but I think we have some pretty strong and creative ideas that we're working on.
I just wanted to quickly insert, we're talking about, we're talking around alternate economies in Ojai, and I've been really inspired by the Thursday Farmers Market. And I was wondering, Fabiola, I see local businesses, and local businesses that are using local products. It's like a closed, it's a circular economy that stays within the valley, and that's super exciting. So I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so the Ojai Community Farmers Market was started right after COVID. We all experienced this fright where we felt like we had to depend on each other and not the larger corporations. And so I feel like that being a part of a community, the farmers market does so many things. It helps children start up businesses. It helps families who want to start businesses. It encourages people to start businesses and know each other, know the farmers, know all these resources, and care for one another, why it's important. And I think that's a big step in. I know we have a lot of funding right now to create affordable housing right now, but the problem is we don't want it in our backyard. A lot of people don't want it here near us. And I think that building community is what we need to focus on, because we need to care about each other, and that's the only way we're gonna move forward. And I think it's baby steps, just knowing each other, knowing what we bring to the table, being involved, helping us from not needing these low-income family housing, helping us build businesses where we can help the community, help us move forward, be a bigger part of not just Ojai, but the world. Like, it's just these little ripples that I think that we need to focus on. A lot of the times we look at the numbers, we look at everything, like all these things. Atticus, you're so knowledge. You are so knowledge too. So much knowledge is there, but I think it really comes down to a smaller scale, just caring about one another and building those relationships. If you are someone that has those opportunities, that has that money, I think you have a big responsibility in saying, this is what's important. This is what the next generations need. And I feel like I'm trying to say like, oh, the Ojai Community Farmers Market, or advertise the Ojai Community Farmers Market, but it's really like the things that are happening there by Julie. I don't know if you guys know Julie Gerard. She does so much of the work herself. I'm her support. I'm there learning from her, but she literally brings people forward and says, hey, you need help, let me help you. This is what you need. I will make sure it happens. I will bring the money by herself, and I feel like we need to show her a little bit more support so that we are able to build resiliency with children, with first-generation people, with people of color, with the elders. I would love to see the elders come and bring whatever knowledge they have to help us prosper. Yeah, I just really think it comes down to community and building that resilience in it, and that's what I would love to see. Yeah.
Just to add to the farmers market, it's one of those places in Ojai where there's the lawn behind OUSD there, and all these vendors are around there, and all these parents sit around on the grass, and all the kids just do kind of whatever they want in the middle, and everybody's making sure that they're safe. So I just think of this as a beautiful micro Ojai moment, and it's just glorious, and I'm hoping that we can help. Just two quick things. One is that there are several housing projects that are in the works. You've probably seen some. Some are this kind of, they're a mix of a developer comes and says, I want to make an offer, some market rate units and some affordable housing units. The state has really leaned on municipalities over the years that have said no to many projects. They're forcing them to say yes, so you see that. Ojai's played that out. But there are some that have already been approved, like Cabrillo, 50 units behind Condor Storage on Bryant. They're just finishing raising that money. So you will see more that has already been approved, also on Franklin. At the same time, when you ask Kim, you say, well, Mayor, what can we do? I think we would be eager, at least I'll speak for myself, eager to see if an employer wants to build some workforce housing, and they, maybe they want to build also a preserve, or they want to do whatever, I think we would love to hear that. So to set that tone, to say, at least I'll speak for myself again, I want to set the tone that it's something we are interested in, that we do want to, because we see this as an issue. And on the business side, all of my colleagues that I've spoken with at any length, we absolutely think that we are so vulnerable to natural disasters with so much tied into tourism. We had a panel on tourism in November of 2017, and the big issue at the moment was STRs, that they just got the ban on the STRs, and the hotels were really upset, and we had, people talking about what we still talk about. And then the Thomas Fire happened, 2 or 3 weeks later, and we kind of saw, oh, what's it like without tourism? Here's what it's like. So it isn't, I wouldn't say it's so much like, oh, we don't want to do without the money, we'll figure it out, and we have a healthy reserve to try to figure it out, but it would be more like, how do we have an economy that lets us have the suppleness that we are not so devastated by a single thing? So that's something it's coming, that we will spend some more time working on that, but it's in our top priorities. So it's not easy to solve, but it might be that we, again, an incubator space, or we develop things on Bryan or whatever. I don't know what it's going to mean, but we know it's a problem, and we know that we're threatened by it. And I would like, all of the employees, if they want to live here and they're contributing, it would be great if they had the opportunity to live here. It just costs too much. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Yes, Andrew, go.
It's also just unhealthful to have that much car traffic in and out. Like, that's a small thing, but it really is, and it's a contributor to climate change that we really don't have to be doing.
Well, and remember, it's also the quality of life for that individual person. Just spending more time in the car, having to commute from work to home contributes.
And maybe they want to go to city council meetings if they live in Ojai and strengthen our local democracy.
And they can't give back in their community because they're spending too much time commuting, and we want them close to home. Yeah, go ahead.
Very last point on this, because Andy brought up some really good data. We have really good data about the Ojai Valley. We have amazing resources, people that live in this valley that do this work. For those of you that don't know Bruce Stensley, who lives in the Ojai Valley, he's also the CEO and president of the Economic Development Collaborative, which is a tri-county organization that just looks at the impact of businesses and communities. And there's more and more data coming out about this line of cars that leave out of Ojai to go to higher paying jobs, and then the line of cars coming in to work in lower paying jobs in our community. And we see it. I'm one of those. I leave every day to go to Oxnard to go work, right? I'm in that line. And emissions, that's just not healthy. Sitting in cars, road rage, getting frustrated, running around, not healthy.
The other part of that is the employees that we do have living in this valley, and even myself, when I want to go shopping, sometimes I will go to Ventura to do it because stuff in Ojai is more expensive, and it's hard to get by buying stuff at Westridge and Vaughn's. And I do think the new Vaughn's is actually trying to have discounted rates on key things, so I look forward to that helping our employees. And, local businesses that offer discounts, or, Wednesday night cheaper pizza or what have you, trying to get people to eat locally and shop locally is important. The agricultural community, very few of them will buy lunch in Ojai anymore. They almost all bring their lunches. That is a big shift from 7-8 years ago. They used to frequent the little Westridge and buy the stuff at the deli, but it's too expensive. So if there's some way to have cheaper eats and quick eats for the lower income people, Jim and Rob's does a good job. The Vaughn's Deli, but stuff is just too expensive. So whatever people can do to keep rental rates down. If you have a cheaper rental, try to rent to locals, not the person that comes up from LA on weekends. It's more of a pain because it's more wear and tear on your rental, but find a teacher, find a nurse, find a firefighter that needs a home. We need those people if the road's closed. Yeah, I remember when my son was at San Antonio School, and it rained a lot, and they closed Ojai Unified for 2 days, and I thought, what am I supposed to do with my kids at home now? But all the teachers were coming from Ventura, and they couldn't get here because Casita Springs was flooded, and so the schools had to close, and that made no sense at all. So we need our nurses and our firefighters and our teachers and everybody else to live locally, to have a community function.
Andra?
Emily just highlighted that one of the ways in which our community is socially stratified by race and income. And that's really important to recognize. So like as much as we, and I feel this very much, I love being in community and seeing, whoever it is, my favorite person from the farmer's market out and about in town. But also we have to recognize there are, based on our demographics, there are segments of our community that we do not see, and that's really corrosive.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of employees, that's why, sometimes we just have to listen to them, I'm just let them speak, step back, and the things I've been doing is just basically, I think I mentioned some of you guys as well. Yes, things are expensive, living costs, merging, everything. So that's, I don't know how to control that. But the only thing that we can control is just, basically Duchess is just giant machine running it day-to-day basis to local and for tourists. So it's just that's why I had to step back and rethink of, there was we have one really awesome, great employee, the recall. The only thing she does is just juicing of almond milk, limes, all the citrus that we day-to-day we serve. And at 40 hours a week, it's insane how much it goes through, a lot. And then you see empty fridge. That's how we've been going through it. She's the one thing I want to, hey chef, next time I love drinking wine. If you open a restaurant, please don't have it really expensive, top-notch wine. That's everything that we could afford.
She wanted the affordable wine so
Yeah.
she could enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to open it, and we just had to figure something out. That was just one person, but in my head, it's a lot to think about. Okay, this is just one person. How many people have these feelings?
Yeah.
And do you know,
I like an $8 glass of wine personally. So I'm good with that. Yeah.
Well, if I could just add, I didn't know something about Duchess, which was, you walk in and there's a line even on a weekday morning or whatever coming in, and I asked, you could reconfigure so there's not the line that way, and I learned that they don't have table service there so that people could stay there and work. And when you go there on a weekday morning, you see a lot of people there working. And so I'm not trying to just praise you because you're here. I'm saying those are all decisions that can be made where you realize you're creating a space, maybe at some expense to you, where you could turn over tables and maybe make more breakfast money, but you're saying, this is a community place where people can go and you could work there for 2 hours and you buy 1 cup of coffee with refills. So, that's low dollar, but it builds a lot. So I appreciate those kinds of choices, but not just you, but there's several people in town. Let me use David Berger as an example at the Playhouse. I've never seen a movie theater that offers that many movies and that many for free. It's wow. I wish he were here, but that to me is a great example of somebody who comes to Ojai, loves what they see here, decides I want to invest, they're in the community fully, and they do something that we all benefit from. So even, I know all of us probably have this feeling if you've been here for a while that you think, there's this pressure outside of Ojai that's changing things or you don't like it. And then you find these gems that get it. They're not trying to change it. They're trying to insert and I don't want to say it enhances what's here. That's how I would see it. So I would see these kinds of examples as enhancing what's here.
What would Ojai be like if there was never any change?
7 o'clock.
Right?
Yeah, or it's the time to announce the card.
Okay. So if you want to ask a question, now is the time to have it ready. Our fabulous volunteer is going to go around and collect these questions. And so just write them down, hold them up, print neatly so that we can read them.
You could take a minute more too and write one. I know
Yeah,
we just sprung it.
Like, yeah, she's going to be coming around.
Sorry to interrupt.
We're going to keep talking for a little bit. Yeah. No, we're going to keep talking, and then, because it is, let's see, it's 6:30. We're going to keep talking, and at 7, we'll take those questions and have a half-hour discussion about the questions. So as they're collecting those, we can kind of keep talking. But so, I mean, there's the idea of if there was no change, what would happen to Ojai?
I know there's a lot of activity though, so if you can, bring it back to the front.
Yeah.
I had a comment about no change. Everyone says Ojai. My kids would say Ojai is so boring and it's never going to change. But I look back at my great-grandparents and my grandparents, and I think my grandparents would be astounded that we're growing so many acres of pixie tangerines when there were only 2 trees planted in 1960, or that the town itself has grown so much, or that some of the schools are even still open. We are always changing. I mean, you've got to look back at the history. And Tom, when he introduced this, he said, what do we see it in 20 years? Well, most of us aren't in this room, well, some of us, but a lot of people in this room aren't going to be here in 20 years. So we need to ask the kids that are at the school district, what do you like about Ojai and what do you want to see? I'm always asking my kids, what do you think, we took out this orchard, what do you think we should do? What do you want it to look like when you come back from college? I don't know. The world is always changing, and it always will.
Yeah. Andra?
I kind of think that Ojai hasn't changed very much. Like, if just in terms of the 100 years of this city of Ojai, I was reading like the Ojai Museum's history of Ojai, and it talked about, this is 100 years ago. Nordhoff became a sought-after destination for pioneering families and affluent Easterners seeking a serene environment and warm winter climate. The establishment of the Foothills Hotel in 1903 elevated the town to one of Southern California's top tourist resorts. I'm like,
that's an LA Times headline from yesterday.
Exactly. So it's like, I think the change that we are observing, like the increase in income inequality, I think that's a result of not planning to change because we continue to just over-leverage in the same industry. And we know what happens, and we know what will happen if we continue to not, change our
deliberately
economic...
plan for change.
Right. I think we have done zero planning for change.
Can I just for clarification, so are you saying if we didn't change something fundamentally, all the projections that Atticus brought up or that I brought up, you'll just see that line go further. So OUSD would just continue to shrink and more people would commute in and out.
I do see that.
Atticus, yeah.
And I'll jump to it.
Yes.
Change, right? It scares a lot of people. Sometimes it scares me, depending on what the change is, right? I got elected to the school board, and immediately we fell into the worst financial crisis the school district had ever experienced. And all I could hear over and over was genuine fear. You're going to close my school. My kid goes to San Antonio. I went to San Antonio school. My grandparent went to San Antonio school. Why are you trying to change this? San Antonio school had dropped below 100 enrolled students. There's only 90 kids on that campus. Meanwhile, there were over 400 kids on another campus. It just wasn't the proper way to organize your institution because our district had changed. So when we talk about change, we can't neglect that change is happening. Change has been happening. Ojai Unified School District is half as big as it was 20 years ago. That's change. What concerns me the most, and I don't know if we're going to get to it, but I'll jump in it, is marginalization. And what that means to folks that aren't aware, those are folks that live on the margins, right? Whether they're low income, whether they're disabled, whether they're seniors that are living on fixed incomes, folks that are living on the margins. And I'll try to make this brief and clear. When we have issues in our system, our republic, our democracy, there are a lot of barriers to overcome to change that system, to keep up with change. That's a good thing. That way you don't just get one person elected and they say, I'm doing this now. We don't want that. So republics and democracies, you have to gather a critical mass of people to create that inertia and that momentum to say, yep, we need to make that change to improve our community, right? There's an intersection with no stop signs and no streetlights and people keep running into each other. People are going to show up to City Hall and say, we need to make this change. What concerns me about the cost of living crisis is when we have community members on the margins that fall victim to that marginalization, housing, they get their rent raised, they get evicted, the rent rises higher than the Social Security paycheck. Guess what? They often don't stay in our community. So now you have compounded that loss with the critical mass. People that get priced out of their homes either end up on the street or they leave Ojai. Now you no longer have that critical mass that comes to your local governments and says, this is a really big problem, and it's impacting me right now. So that's what concerns me about the marginalization in our community, that we have genuine people in this valley that genuinely want to help each other and have the resources to, but I get concerned we're missing things because we are losing people. They are literally no longer here in our community, and they're not showing up to the city council. They're not showing up to the school district to talk about what they're experiencing because they're gone. And I'll offer one example. I've only seen this happen
And
once.
then an approach to address that.
Yes. I went to a city council meeting a few years ago, and it was around housing. And this one woman showed up, and she gave public comment. And the first thing she said is, I'm so-and-so, I no longer live in Ojai. I live a few hours away. But I did live in Ojai, and I knew this conversation was happening tonight. I got priced out of my home, so I made it a priority to come here and share that with you about how that impacted me. Think of how many people would want to do that, but they're already gone. They're already gone, and I'm concerned we're missing something.
Well, just the solution is many-faceted, though, isn't it? So in other words,
Yeah.
you would say, what kind of employment could enable somebody to stay, but what kind of housing project could enable someone to stay? But there's tools that the state actually gave municipalities. For example, in a new project, you can actually have a first dibs of someone who lives there already in your zip code, or that's something that's newer. So I agree. And I share, that's my number one concern, actually, is how do we keep families here? And like Fabiola is a great example. I don't want her to be priced out, and I want her kids to stay here and her family to stay here. So that's, to me, it's not going to be one thing, it's going to be many things. And it could be something like the school becomes so interesting, like the partnership with Rock Tree Sky I use as an example to say it's kind of a fascinating endeavor. It's not for everybody, of course, but some people love it. It brought in students that weren't there before. And imagine if there were sort of 5 interesting collaborations like that people move to Ojai for OUSD. That would be a dream come true for me and I know for you. But those we could start setting those things into motion now, but it's 5 or 6 things at once, it seems to me.
Yes, I do want to hear.
I'll be very quick.
Even one approach.
One approach. I think we can start very simple. Shifting your perspective, right? Shifting your perspective. Understand the status quo is change in this valley. And so instead of rejecting change, how can you bend the change? How can you be strategic about the change? How can you center communities in that change rather than thinking, nothing needs to change. Everything can just stay the same. No, life is change. But what we can do is we can guide that change so that it has the greatest impact for the most needy and the most vulnerable in our community. And I think that's what we see so much in our valley when we have these natural disasters. Everyone comes together, those with resources that exceed many others, and they put their resources on the line. And they say, I know my community is better when my neighbor is okay, when my neighbor is safe, when my neighbor has their basic needs met. So let's try to work to shift that perspective and understand the valley is changing, but we can play a part in that and assert a positive force in that change.
Just quick political note. So we talk about these housing projects that are coming. which is like, I don't know, 120 units of housing to 150, I can't remember the number. But all of those housing projects the city was forced into by a state law or a lawsuit. So it is so this is very much a challenging political issue. There are factions battling each other, and it is really hard to get support for a housing project anywhere because there are folks who have lived in their homes for their entire lives. It's their primary investment, and there is concern that they will be negatively impacted by more people. I mean, that's like a very basic way of putting it. So I wanted to point out that it's not easy. It is not as though we came to this via a community consensus.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, even if however you want to characterize, let's say, former voting, you can certainly say there are people that have big differences about where they think Ojai should go, and we see that every day at a council meeting and all that. But even the workforce housing at Ojai Unified, there's some that want it and some don't, for all the reasons we're talking about. So it's something that, I guess to me, the more we can have conversations where there's as many facts on the table, there's goodwill, you come ready to talk and possibly even be persuaded out of your belief. Possibly you have that open of a mind. I believe we can get to some good compromise. But it's that, speaking of not just the current political environment, but it's been this way for years, where increasingly, especially on social media, people are so upset with each other for having just a differing opinion. So that's what this is trying to be, is an antidote to that. But it's something most of us face at some level every day.
It strikes me too that even what you were just touching on, kind of a mindset of avoiding discord where there's disagreement, right? And trying to get to, okay, we can have a disagreement, but we can still move forward, with what Atticus was saying too about shifting a mindset, and maybe everybody has to shift to get to the place where everyone's kind of okay with what has to happen to move forward.
I know, I won't stop talking, but there is a supreme just lack of trust in public institutions. So people hear about, for example, OUSD, I don't remember how many years ago this was, but there was the hotel debacle. And there was a preliminary sketch of a hotel mixed-use development at the Chaparral property, and the community flipped out and killed the project, of course. But what I'm saying is, like, people showed up to the meeting and said, "How dare you?" And as if there hadn't been a 2-year process that had gotten to that point. So people, and it's also, this is an issue with, like, people don't get news.
Also, just to add to that one,
Yes.
If you remember in 2017, there was a 7-Eleven committee to say just what Atticus said. You have, most of the schools are operating at 50% capacity or lower. So the 7-Eleven committee was formed, and there was meetings to say, well, which school should we close if that's what we're going to do? At Miners Oaks, for example, full space, and everybody's saying, don't close my school. So the 7-Eleven committee came up with the solution, let's do something with the downtown property. And they tried to do that, and maybe it was a debacle, or maybe they didn't do it well, but the idea was they were trying to implement what they thought the will of the community was, and so basically the county forced the issue, and it's a blessing in disguise in my view, because it forced us to do something that the community had a really hard time to do. So it's hard to accept change. That's the truth.
I mean, sorry.
Yes,
Go.
The world is dying, you know. It's not great right now. So the only thing that we could do is lift each other up, hold each other accountable, day-to-day base, and help each other out. Just, that's what you guys are talking about, switching and all these, you know, it's not about argument, so it's not about, I mean, we're all in the shit. So just all about the people at the end. That's all we gotta do. Well,
No, that's good.
subject, but.
That's powerful.
I would just add, if anyone is interested in the housing idea we have at Ojai Unified, You can talk to me. We also have another trustee, Trustee Kathy Smith, right here in front, who's also an Ojai local, grew up in Ojai. Challenge that local governments have that I've noticed, from federal to state to hyperlocal. The speed with which information is moving, government struggles to keep up with it. Think about it. Problem happens, what's government going to do? Hey, let's research this. Let's try to understand it. Let's work on the response, what makes sense, and then let's deliver it to the people who are asking the question. That can take days. That can take a week. And in the same time, you can have a Facebook post that pops up in 10 minutes that already has decided what the problem is and what the issue is.
Yeah.
So local leadership is really needed right now, and leadership is not always popular. And I learned this from Leon Panetta. You can either govern by crisis or you can govern by leadership. And what we see so much in our systems throughout our bureaucracy is problems that fester. We don't exert that leadership to take on a problem proactively, exactly what Andrew's talking about, and then we wait for the crisis, because then here comes the critical mass. Okay, fine, we got to do something. And in that energy, we can move a little reckless.
I was just going to say, on the social media side, it seems to me we have to grow a culture where we don't tolerate. I mean, misinformation is okay if it's a mistake, but when you see things that seem deliberately wrong and they would know better, but they're trying to instigate or persuade, then I hope that we're growing as a culture to be really more skeptical of I would call them belligerent posts, right, that are inflammatory, right? So I hope we're growing, and I do see some evidence of that we're pulling back. We're saying, yeah, you're the person who seems to have all day to post all day, but then I'm seeing them get fewer likes. Less people are reposting them, and I hope that you just kind of see, we're just enough of that. It's not solving anything. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, extrapolating from that, going back to even what we started talking about, the person-to-person approach where, and I bet all of us have experienced this, there's the effect of being on social media, and then when we actually get in a room with a bunch of people or get with a few people, that kind of goes away and we can realize more what's real or applicable. Did you want to? Yeah.
I'd like to comment. I think that giving people the space to be involved and be a part of the community would sort of not diminish that completely, but it would lessen that. And I think that's something that we need to work on, is giving the people that don't always have the space to talk a space, like children. They are very knowledgeable. They have so much insight. We can learn a lot about them, but we don't necessarily always give them the space. Same as the older people, we sort of tend to put them aside after they're older, and I think that they have a lot to teach us. So I think that opening up a space in our community where we allow different people, younger, older, teens, first-generation immigrants, to have a voice, I think it would clear a lot of that negativity up, because I think that's where it stems from, is them not feeling like they have a space where they can come and be a part of the solution. So I think we need to open up those areas so that people do feel a part of it, feel like they could, not just on social media where you can say something and hide, or, it's about being involved, and I think those people want to be involved, and we need to give them a better space to do that, starting young.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. It is nearly 7, and I actually have a lot of great questions, so I'm going to start with some questions. And we're touching on this a little bit, but this gets to an approach or a way to deal with this. What are ways to help folks who don't want change be willing to accept innovative solutions? And this is specifically to provide more affordable housing. I'm going to expand that and say, even just whatever other issue it is, the traffic commuting issue, providing employment, how do we get people to open their minds to innovative solutions? Does anyone have experience with that or want to comment on that?
Go ahead.
We have to communicate better. It's really, really simple. I joined a school board in a moment of crisis where a lot of feelings inward were, this is really unfair what's happening to us right now. People just aren't understanding what's happening. working in government, we have to be better. We have to communicate better about what the issue is. If you can't explain a problem, chances are you don't understand the problem. People don't want to hear, it's just complicated. It's just,
Atticus, what's a way that government can communicate better?
Well, do your homework. Try to explain the situation. I'll dive 10 seconds into this housing. The reason why I'm really jazzed and excited about workforce housing for the Ohio Unified School District is it's state property. It's government land. It's not relying on a private developer, private piece of property that then will come in and say, let me build 60 market rate units, and then we go and say, please include 15% affordable. That is how the vast majority of housing is built in the state of California, and it's called inclusionary housing. You get 50 units market rate, maybe 10 affordable. And they don't have to be affordable permanently, usually only for about 20, 25 years. What I like about the project we have is it's government-owned land, government housing, that can utilize a state law, AB 2295, the state of California passed it a few years ago. It says if you want to build housing on your land, it has to immediately be 51% affordable. And all that housing has to be first dibs to your school district employees, then school district employees of school districts next to you, and then any public employee, city employee, county employee, firefighters, police officers. Then after that, it can be general public, right? But that requires people on a school board who, like me, are working every day, don't get paid for it, don't get paid on the school board, it's completely volunteer, to have the interest and the time to dive into that issue, understand that issue, and then try to explain that issue to the people in the community who all they're hearing is, I hear the school district wants to build 8 stories on downtown property and take away the farmer's market.
Yep.
Where if you came to the school board meeting, you would hear us over and over and say, we do not want to close the farmer's market because it is one of the most beautiful things in our valley, and if there's any housing on that property, they should have a plaza in the middle that people can commune and convene and interact with each other with kids, right?
Yep.
So we have to be better communicators and also understanders of our systems of government and how then people who are dying to understand it. That's what I tell people. I know it feels like fire, it feels like people are coming to yell at you.
You went way more than 10 seconds, man.
Thank you. We have to recognize people are coming
Okay.
because they want to know more, and we have to meet them where they want to know more. And there's no perfect policy. There will always be trade-offs.
Just this. It seems to me there's a mode about you present as much data as you can, as clear as you can, and then it seems to me is not being married to an outcome, but being married to a process. And the process is getting as many people together to talk about this thing, even very divergent points of view, but it's conversational as much as you can get it. And that means literally workshops or forums, posting things online, getting feedback, so that you can say, oh yeah, you have a concern, let's literally talk back and forth about the concern, and I'm gonna try to show as much data as I can possibly get. I wanna look at your data. It takes forever to do that. It's much harder than somebody making a decision and doing it. So it seems to me helping people, at least let's look at what the facts are about the commuting we're talking about and all that, but then let's get these rooms together where we start saying, okay, what are your concerns? Traffic. Okay, so this housing solution that we're thinking about better have the right traffic component, or better have the right environmental sustainability component. All those things that would be concerns. And so it's slower, but it means back and forth talking, it seems to me. But Fabiola, I think, was going to say something. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to add, facts matter. Government needs to communicate proactively, which I recognize is extremely challenging because a lot of these local people are volunteers. I also think that citizenship requires folks to engage in their democracy, recognize that the conversation didn't start when you decided to show up to the meeting. There are reasons for everything. There are reasons for everything. And it's usually not corruption or nefariousness. Because I always follow the dots. And it's, so that's kind of my, I guess assuming best intentions goes a really, really long way. And I think that we can, in this local community, when we have the opportunity to have our neighbors in government positions, that we can perhaps do a better job of assuming best intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that deserves a clap.
We can clap. I'm going to combine a couple questions that are related. So this one is, my neighborhood's now comprised of second homes. Will we ever build, can we, and I'm paraphrasing things a little bit, enough housing so that everyone who wants to vacation here, then they want to move here, right? All the people, they come and visit. It's so fabulous. How do I move here? I want to move here. Will there ever be, can we ever supply enough housing for all the people that want to live here?
Obviously, no.
And should we?
Is the question that the person's neighborhood is filled with people who are only there somewhat? Can we have enough housing so that people who want to buy houses here can, and also more people who would like to be here permanently can? Is that the question?
It's sort of like saying there's this problem, right? Somebody can come here and go, oh, there's a house for sale. I'm going to buy it. It's my second house. I live somewhere else, and it stays empty. And then combining that with all the other issues we're grappling. Yeah, you get it.
This is my extreme pet peeve. So second residences, I've always wanted the stat, how many homes in Ojai are vacation properties or second residences. I don't know how to get that data, but I would love to get it. I think that something that I focus on a lot lately is homelessness, because we have a community of 30 people living in tents outside of our city hall, which is a quarter mile away from here. Gosh, where was I going with this? Pet peeve, yes. Second, okay, so we know homelessness is a really complex problem, but we know that when home values increase, when rents increase, homelessness increases. So you know what, that's not the question.
Well, it seems to me that...
That's all right.
Well, what has happened, people have asked, oh, can we have a tax on if it's somebody's second home and those kinds of things, and some cities do have, shorthand is a mansion tax, so a house that's over a certain dollar amount that has an extra tax. That's one way cities do it. But I hope that we can do some kind of hybrid census to find out, because there's other questions I would like to know, like how many people work from home here? That would be really fascinating to know, or get revisions on that. But it seems to me that the supply and demand, and I've heard, I think, really sound people say this, if we just build a whole bunch of more nice houses, it's not going to really change the supply and demand because the demand seems so high. So that's not I heard one of my colleagues say it this way: if you were to get to that point in the equation that the price would go down, we wouldn't want to live here anymore. That's one thought. But I would say it this way: workforce housing and affordable housing that has specifications about who can live there helps solve that problem, because I don't see a remedy to say you don't get to live here even though you can afford it and you're only going to stay here 2 weekends a month. I don't know the remedy for that, or would we want that? But it does seem to me the people that we do want to stay here, the middle income people, we build houses that are not those houses. We build the projects we've been talking about tonight.
I would also suggest there's a lot of people building ADUs in the city,
Good
not
point.
so much on county property, because we're limited by SOAR on ag property. Please encourage your neighbors that are building ADUs to rent to people that live here already.
Seriously.
My sister-in-law just built an ADU, and she's having people already ask if they can rent it so they can come here for Thanksgiving. And they only want to be here for Thanksgiving, and they're willing to pay $4,000 a month to come here for one weekend, which is bizarro. Wow. But it also serves a purpose of you having someone look after your house when you go on vacation, or someone to watch your dog, or, I see in the East End where I live, none of the houses on the street that I live on have people living in them anymore. And then the neighbor comes and is surprised there's a bear living under the porch. Well, you can tell people that sort of thing will happen on a rural property, and maybe they'll rent out their pool house to somebody who will actually live there and make sure the bear doesn't move in. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
I think this is just a prime example of a problem that festers, right? So for those of you that don't know, what we're talking about is ADU. Or sorry, did you want to get to the next question?
No,
I'll try to stick to the 10 seconds. We don't take action on housing crisis in California, over and over and over, not just because of Ojai. Local governments up and down the state have very strong opinions about housing. It becomes worse and worse and worse. So finally, the state legislature, which is the most diverse it's ever been, people who are younger, they have stronger feelings about local governments who have not acted. They come in, boom, now we're going to let people do ADUs and lot split, right? So are we going to continue down this path of we wait and wait and wait and wait, and now we try to govern by crisis, and we are reckless? I have a lot of critiques for that policy that is allowing ADUs for many of the reasons. There's not affordability attached to it. But it's happening because we're not governing by leadership. We're not being proactive and taking the courage to say, I have an idea, even though it's kind of scary, but I think we can do something.
Let's
here.
be practical. Like you could say, there's specific things. Like you could say, oh, it's leadership or something like that. But you could also say, well, let's look at authorizing tiny homes, which we just recently did. But those are active things that you can do to say, oh, there were barriers that I didn't even realize. Like there was a mandate that you had to build a porch. And that stopped people from building the ADU. There was somebody that wanted to, there's different systems that they could do that we could make it, and we did. We made it easier to try to alleviate the problem, Emily, that you're talking about, which was, can you build something that your kids can move back and live in, possibly if they need to, or something like that. So to me, it's not going to be one thing, it's many things. And anyway, it's a long strategy, though.
Okay, I'm going to go to
Can
another.
I add something really quick?
Yes, go.
I think that if we have these stronger restrictions on who we are giving these properties to, it would kind of help us be like this utopian place and kind of give them the reason to give back to their own communities and build more utopian places in this world. So I think that it would be a good sort of, it's not really us being selfish, but kind of saying like, hey, like, this place has been worked on. We've worked very hard to build this community, to take care of this community, take care of the land. And it's not that we don't want you, we just want you to build those resilient places and other places too, because this place definitely can't fit everybody. Yes.
We can totally do that.
Okay, this question shifts gears a little bit, but it goes back to something that several of you mentioned at the very beginning about the sounds and listening, and when you can go and listen to the animals and this unique aspect of the Ojai Valley. This talks about the quiet that's being intruded upon by, it sounds like your mom, by vehicle sounds and roadway noise on, old pavements. I think a lot of pavements too. Is there any way to address that? Some ideas?
We do have a noise ordinance. We all learned a lot about it during the pickleball debacle.
But for driving,
The feedback I have received and I've personally experienced is the paving on most of the streets that happened this past year. It's pretty smooth and quiet. So, if it was something like, could we accelerate the road paving? I mean, the plans are already out, and you can see when all the streets are in the queue. But that's something we actually have talked about doing for different reasons, financial reasons, like accelerating. But I agree. To me, if you say, how can we solve a general traffic problem, it has so many, or at least mitigate it. It has many, many benefits. Carbon emissions, clearly, sound, getting people walking, all the above.
Okay. How do we make our community more fire ready?
Keep your orchards irrigated around the valley would be one of my biggest answers. But that requires, we've moved into this stage where agricultural water rates are pretty much the same as residential water rates. And people say, oh, well, you have a well, you pump from,
And why is that a problem for those of us who are not in ag?
Because the price of oranges has not changed. So the price of doing business, of growing any agricultural commodity in the state of California has skyrocketed in the last 15 years, especially during the last 10 years, and we are not competitive in the world market. Oranges at Westridge across the street are probably from South America because it's cheaper to grow them there. Buy locally, please. They're more expensive, but they're better for you. It's really frustrating, and our state is in an agricultural crisis right now. Farms are leaving the state because it's gotten too expensive. Can't get insurance, can't pay for water. can't get labor. We are nothing, and some of us are still trying, and we've innovated, and we're growing different crops and selling them a little bit differently and trying to sell them for more. It's frustrating, but our buffer zone of the valley is an irrigated landscape, and that is going away really quickly, and it's really scary. You know, if the Thomas Fire were to happen now, and it would be a little bit windier, the town can burn down real easily. And
Yeah.
there are big grassy fields on Grand Avenue. The river bottoms are all dry and didn't burn in the Thomas Fire and are full of eucalyptus, which explodes. It's not a great site. We need to work together. We need to work with OVLC. We need to work with larger landowners, agriculture. We need to work with the Forest Service. We need to work together and not wait till crisis.
We're not going to be able to answer this one so fast, but this is really a subject on its own, because it's home hardening, it's landscape clearing, it's community awareness, it's Southern California Edison, it's utility lines, it's really all of the above. So we'll very soon, I'm sure we'll spend 2 hours on this one piece.
Just a second, I wanted to actually, the folks who are not in government, and Emily, you just kind of spoke to it, but thinking about what you might, like, some of you might own houses here and not, and renting and working and owning businesses. When you think about the threat of fire, what's something that you might need from your local government? In terms of fire, like fire preparedness. And then the other part of this question is, because there is this discussion happening in fire preparedness of sheltering in place, right? The valley has limited exit roads. And so part of the strategy is a lot of folks might be encouraged to shelter in place in a big catastrophic event. And so for those of us folks who will be here, I'm wondering if you haven't thought about it, that's fine, or if something comes up now, but something that you might, even just one question of what comes to mind, business owners, folks who live and work in the valley, what could your local and state government answer a question for you, or how that would work? Or
another part of it is make sure our firefighters live locally. Half of Orange County's firefighters don't even live in the state of California.
Wow. Yep.
So that's pretty shocking, and I don't know how many of Ojai's firefighters or Ventura County firefighters live locally. There are some I know that live locally, but rent your rental to a firefighter. That's one. And, make sure doctors, nurses, firefighters, teachers can live here. That's huge. And have a communication system in place with your employees, all of your employees. That was a big thing during the Thomas Fire. Where is everybody? And how can they help each other? How can they help our neighbors? Agriculture is pretty good at that, not so much. If your employees don't show up and something catastrophic's going on, how can you reach out to their family members, their children? If they weren't at home when the flood hit and the kids might be home, where are they? That kind of have your system in place, even with your employees, maybe your housekeeper, everybody you know.
And I think it comes down to knowing your neighbors. So that's something that I've been working on myself. Like I said, I'm a first generation here. I'm raising children. I've tried really hard to be part of the community and knowing who my neighbors are, so that in a time of crisis, I know where to ask for help. I know who I can count on. I know who's who. I can say, hi, I need your help. So just building that community, I would love a little bit more focus on building that so that we can rely on each other and say, hey, I know how to do this. Hey, I can offer this. And just having that available, I think that's huge.
Okay.
Can I jump in,
yes.
Kimberly? I know, I'm part of government, I'm sorry, but I just want to share this. Number one, please understand fire behavior. Please listen to our public safety experts, our fire experts. The vast majority of our fires are embercasts. They're starting in the backcountry, and then the winds are blowing them into your home. Think about that zone 0, 5 feet around your house. What can catch on fire around 5 feet around your house? Some of those things that you may love, those plants, think about them, because as soon as your house goes, now it becomes a threat to the next house. Second, sheltering in place. This is really important. Ojai Valley, 4 ways in, 4 ways out, 2 that are mostly used, and a lot of them are very small. Nordhoff High School, we're going to be finishing our microgrid. We spend a little extra money to do this, so that way, if there's a public emergency in the Ojai Valley, folks will be able to shelter at Nordhoff High School, which has very low fire threat because of how it is constructed. And the gymnasium and the cafeteria where we store food on that microgrid will be able to run for months without energy. Because what happens when we get these fires? They cut the electricity. So as long as there's sun shining, that microgrid can run indefinitely, and we'll be able to shelter people at Nordhoff High School while we get the help.
There may be 4 places like that across the valley that are in development, so we get it. We might not be able to leave when there's an emergency, but we want both plans to be possible and planned for, but safely being able to stay.
The Ojai Music Festival has a unique model in that volunteers offer temporary housing for artists who come in for the festival. How could we bridge households who have those extra rooms, spaces, with local workers who need to rent rooms, leverage the generosity with need?
That's a great idea that is far more difficult in practice. I've heard that concept before. I want to say our former mayor was interested in that, but yeah. So I think it's a lot more difficult to do than it sounds.
There was some county resources around identifying available rooms for rent, and so there was some talk about developing something here for the valley. So if there was something that was more pointed to say, here's things that are available that people are renting rooms. I mean, right now we do have it on social media, which every single day you see something like a room or a space or whatever. So if we could develop more resources that way, I think would be fine. But it feels like some of the communication pieces are already in place. But there still seems to be a supply and demand problem. And having somebody rent your room and having somebody stay for the music festival for a week are not the same thing. And the music festival is not the only one who does it. The storytelling festival, there's lots of places that do it, but yeah, it would be maybe working with some of those people to say the ADU or the tiny home idea or whatever, and you say, oh, how are you using this? That would be an interesting question that I would love our planning commission to ask. Our planning department to ask.
And I wonder I feel like there was a question there too about that it might not be a government solution. It might be a nonprofit or NGO that creates some sort of network that works with businesses who have the employees who might be looking for these unique spaces, the ADUs, I don't know. Anyway. Can we make Ojai more elderly-oriented community? Maybe more support?
That must mean what?
It says, can we?
The median income went up to almost 10 years in the last census, between the last two.
I think, so the actual question is, can we make Ojai a more elderly-oriented community? That's what it actually says. I'm wondering if it means more support and services for the folks in that age group, rather than more oriented, because we do know we have an aging population. So I don't think that they're saying we need to.
I'll just quickly comment that I want to say that the majority of the folks who are homeless at Ojai Tent Town are over 50 years old. So there's a real point there that this is not a friendly community if you are poor and elderly. And that's a longer conversation, but I just wanted to note that.
Whispering Oaks is such an amazing model because you have an elderly population or disabled, and the rent is 30% of their income, no matter what their income is. If it's only Social Security, fine, whatever. So that's a long project. That was a HUD project. So not to say it's impossible, but it could be that when I learned that Whispering Oaks had initially a 5-year waiting list, and now they just do a lottery, clearly the need is there. No question. And even in the tent town, I know early days there was 3 people right away that were even on that list. So maybe that's something that we could look at too, to say it's a long arc to get this going, but that's kind of where we are.
Look, we don't do a good job in our system of taking care of communities that bookend our society. Young folks, early children, and our seniors. So what can we do in our community to strengthen the community organizations that are doing that work? Groups like the Help of Ojai, right? Ojai, and I believe I'm correct in this, I've talked to you about it, Andy, Ojai has now surpassed Camarillo and is now the oldest town in the county. So we have seniors here. How do we take care of them? How do we get the human resources to help take care of them, right? We need people to help our seniors. Where are they going to come from? Are they going to drive up every day from Oxnard, from Port Hueneme, from LA, from Santa Barbara, from Carpinteria? Or can we see that as a workforce? Caregivers. This is the biggest retirement we are seeing in our society right now, is the baby boom generation. And it's falling on typically their kids who get sandwiched. They got to take care of the grandkids, and then they got to take care of their parent, all in a system where cost of living is increasing. And we have seniors on fixed incomes. Massive, 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 massive issue, but there are groups on the ground who are helping seniors. Help of Ojai is fantastic. How can we continue to get resources to those folks who are doing that work on the ground?
I think since you're part of OUSD board, I think one thing that we could try to do with the children is kind of implement how important the elderly are to us, who they are, why we need to take care of them. Maybe we can do like field trips, or when people need to raise citizenship points, go do something there. I don't know if the elderly want that necessarily, but I think that's a good step in implementing that care or that attention that we need to give it. I always think it's starting young, and when you start young, it grows them to be people in the community that still have a focus towards that way. I think that's a good start.
Love that idea. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times %. Yes, yes. Love that idea. I'm going to talk with Kathy's here. We're going to talk to the school district, see what we can do.
Okay, lovely.
All right. This is changing direction a little bit. If you, any one of you, could create a fun space for preteens and teens in Ojai, in the Valley, what would you create? I heard bowling alley from multiple people out
bowling
here. I want a bowling alley. What? People who grew up here, a pool?
A pool is definitely needed. Why we don't have a
Yes,
pool?
a pool is needed. I know
Dog
it's in
park.
the works, right?
What, a water
Dog
park?
Dog
Pool's
park.
almost ready.
The pool's almost ready.
Early September, a $15 million pool at North High School will be unveiled.
Just, Kim, on that point, we do have this student council that comes and meets with us once a month, and that's one of the questions that we asked. What would you like to see in Ojai? And we had some of our staff there, that people in Parks and Rec, getting a lot of feedback from them. But when it translates into sort of city policy, and you say, if somebody is interested in opening a bowling alley at that spot, I'm all ears. I want to hear it. What can we do to help? Well, of course.
You heard it here.
Yes, it's great. But what I mean is, let's move it along. What can we do? And there's been a couple of, they've moved it along. There's actually drawings. And so I hope we get it.
All right. 10 seconds?
10 seconds. Look, I'm 28 years old. I'm no longer
You're
a
good.
teen,
Go,
but
10 seconds, go.
art. Our young people are expressive. They're seeing the world around them. They have access to information that our generations before have never had access, instantaneous access. Let's create spaces where they can be artistic, they can express themselves, and they can communicate with each other face to face and put down those phones. Put down those phones.
Great. So I'm combining two questions. How can we get some more industry into the town? What can we do to attract more diverse businesses? And those of you who have businesses, are there challenges, roadblocks? What are ways to make it easier for businesses to operate and be here?
What was that? I mean, to attract, I think for the culinary standpoint, I don't know, like, it's to me, like the way I see it is like Ojai, it's becoming like, you know, like just even the last 3.5 years, it's like kind of like a food destination. People come here to eat food, and then there's restaurants, and then this. But one thing that we should really stay away from is not like the big city. We should be really our farmers with no shoes, bringing their boxes and, you know, fish and vegetables, and then going in and out of the restaurants, and then going to such a unique, and that's what it seems like, you know, all day long, like that, just like running, like I said, it's like machines, and all day long. It doesn't matter how many people that we're feeding from all over the countries, and we should. It should be the scenes, and we should be really like being taken care of, like communities and these farmers around us, and that is, I think that's like the beauty part of it, how I seen it, and that should be just the way it is. That keep moving forward as well. I don't know if I answered that question right.
I want to ask Andy a question. What's the status of our internet infrastructure?
Yeah, no, great. So a couple things. Well, it depends on what you're asking, but there is, so basically fiber optic is going countywide, and there is a project already to bring it to the valley. So then you would have more robust internet, and it's actually dramatically more. And it doesn't get buried that far into the ground. So we will see that really in the coming time next year. You'll see that we'll start to implement. But also having backups for emergencies, we realized during Thomas Fire, even that last wind event that we had in January, realizing we have to have the backups in place, really sincerely. But I would just say, just Kim, on the one point about diversifying the economy so we can have more industry, that's something that the city actually re-engaged with the chamber, and that's one of the pieces is asking, working with them, you know, getting feedback about how can we attract more businesses that we would like, and then once they're here, shepherd them in the process. So I'm really, and I heard somebody yell rent, and maybe there's some kind of rent that we could help with businesses. So if that's what they meant, that's something that we're talking about. So.
What about like actually having our own community build the business here rather than attracting other
great
businesses there? That
all for
would be amazing.
Oh, no, 100%.
I think as well, again, going back to the youth, pouring into them. They have great ideas, creativity. So I would love to see us help them be entrepreneurs, be creative, build businesses, and support them in that way. I think that would be huge. I think that, it would bring
That would
a
be
lot
like
to us.
an incubator idea where you go, oh, we could actually put money into, let's say, a project that somebody's starting here where they need some seed money to begin. I mean, Ventura does something very similar to that, so we're looking at that.
And again, Ojai Community Farmers Market, Julie Gerard is a big part of that right now, but she needs a lot more support. She's offering the grounds at no cost. We're offering any advertisement we can give, any bit of money that we don't have, we give it to them. So I would just like a little bit more support in that way.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
It's interesting. There's a lot of little businesses around Bryant Circle. There's a sustainable packaging company. There's a knife making company. There's a woodworking guy. But, you know, I think when Ojai Unified, when Nordhoff has career days, if you guys know of businesses, you should tell them to go to the career day and just tell a couple teenagers, hey, look, come by my business and see that, you know, what we do, because kids don't know what goes on. Same with, you know, all the nonprofits. It's good to get the teenagers to the businesses to see, oh my gosh, I could grow up to, you know, be a woodworker, or kids just looking at phones or just hearing about it doesn't mean anything. There should be a teenagers visit workplaces. I've hosted several Nordhoff groups to our packing house, and they have all kinds of questions and ideas, and it's great for me, it's great for them. And of course, they just think produce grows in the shelves at the grocery store or something, I don't know. Anyway, we need to get the information out better to our youth, so.
This is a question some folks might have some knowledge of, but it might be too specific, I'm not sure. Wasn't the Ojai Valley Inn required to build affordable housing for its employees? If so, what happened?
I'm going to have to go back a little bit, and I was in the room, but I was not on the council then, but I believe that there was something that they were intending to build that turned into those apartments that are on Country Club Drive that resold, but I know there is a project that they are proposing that would be on Hermosa to meet that demand. So it may not be, well, and again, going back to the business example, I worked, Tom, who spoke here a minute ago, Tom and Catherine's company, BST, there was like 60 of us working at our computers, going out to lunch 3 or 4 days a week, and here was this really robust business happening there, and that's the kind of thing locally grown where I'd like to see, what can we do as a city to help, have 50 people working in an office making pretty good money, but if I can do the same thing with the inn, with housing and that kind of stuff is something I would be interested in. So I don't know enough about what happened, but I know that what some people say who seem to know better than me is the city stopped the project. That's what I have heard. Now, I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Okay. We touched on this earlier, but then someone asked this question, I think even after the conversation. What is the current status, and this will be for you, Atticus, of the OUSD converting any existing buildings for teacher housing? And so, snapshot, and I feel like there's a meeting coming up on it, so maybe provide some of that quick info and where folks can get.
Of course, the best thing I can do is explain the timeline, right? So right now, Ojai Unified is in the feasibility stage. We have a consulting firm that is studying what can we build on this property. And we have tasked that feasibility study to look at many options and tell us when they come back, it will probably be done in fall, they'll come back and tell us what they found. One of those is, can you retrofit buildings? A lot of people are saying, hey, don't build something new, you got buildings there. So what we got to do is we have this feasibility group that's going to look at, okay, what do we have built there? What is in the infrastructure? Because some of those buildings were built a while ago. So is there asbestos? Is there mold? Are there other issues? So it is all being looked at in the feasibility, and that feasibility should be finished this fall, and then that will lead into what do we like, what do we not like about the recommendations, or at least what they've found. So we have tasked that group to look at all options. Can you build things new? Can you retrofit things? And if you can't, tell us why. Tell us why.
And even no decision has been made thus far, right?
No, I want to make this very clear. There is no development proposal before the board. We are trying to figure out and study what could be built, not what will be built, what could be built that fits our community. That's what we're looking at. So if you have ideas, let us know.
Okay. What would be the benefits and negatives of expanding the city limits? And I picked this out of the pile because I've had this question for the entire time I've lived in the Valley, and I know there's a history behind it, and I don't know how often it comes up.
We did a panel December 8th with Ben Harvey, our city manager, and Matt Levere, their county supervisor. And that question I figured was going to come up about, the subject of the panel was the relationship between the city and the unincorporated valley. And I just did a little bit of research to say, how many times have people asked to either become part of Ojai or something like that? And it turns out many times. And there's times when 2006, there was something that Steve Bennett was a part of, that people were thinking about doing this thing. So basically, the county would, I think, work with, if there was a whole group of people in some part of the valley that said, we would love to become part of the city, we would work with the county and figure out, what kind of taxes would you be losing? We would wean them off of it, whatever. That could all be figured out. But the people, there would have to be a group of people outside of the city who would want to do it. So there's things that are good about not being in the city limits, right? Like you could have a chain store, for example. So anyway, it's not like a slam dunk that it's just good. So I think there's been several times over the time that people have tried and nothing's caught on yet.
And that is 7:30. So I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the Agora Foundation and Tom and all of our fabulous panelists. Can we give our panelists a big round of applause, please? And from this conversation, more of these will be scheduled. And remember, the next one is on immigration at Matilaha on September 21st. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.